Hello everyone, this is Vikas here and I'm glad to be part of Bearing Expo speaker series today. The topic that I'm going to cover is recovery of bearing industry. The topics that are going to cover are self-introduction. So I'll talk about myself, my background, what I'm doing right now. I'll talk about trends and drivers that are there for the bearing industry and what are bearing manufacturers doing to capture the trends and drivers. We'll talk about this pandemic. We'll talk about how the global recovery will take place and how much time it will take. It would be based on different estimates that different organizations of repute have given. We'll talk briefly about small and medium scale sectors in India. And the reason why I'm talking about this particular topic is because it's a growing sector in India and it will demand a lot of manufacturing, a lot of manufacturing going to come from this sector, and government focus, especially Indian government focus, is going to come over here. I'm also talking about a growth story during COVID, about a company known as SolutionBuggy, and I'm part of that SolutionBuggy, and what it took for from us to bring that growth is what I'm going to cover. So I'll start with a self-introduction. So this is me. I've got around 21 years of experience in manufacturing sector. I've worked across different functions, operations, project management, business strategy, business development, marketing and sales. Right now I'm with a lot of companies, but in the past I have worked for Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. It's a public sector under Ministry of Defense. I've worked for Larsen & Toubro. It's a big engineering and construction multinational company, Indian. I worked for Tyco Electronics, which is now known as TE Connectivity, and the Swedish bearing manufacturer SKF for 7.5 years. The activities that I do other than the engagements I have with different companies is I'm an avid writer. I write in newspapers and magazines quite often. I write, the latest one came I think in February about startups in defense sector in India. I've done a lot of white papers, given a presentation of my white papers in different Indian and domestic, which is domestic and international platforms. I'm basically a mechanical engineer and master's in business administration, and I've done short courses in RMIT Australia, Wharton USA, and some company sponsored courses with general management program SKF Sweden and management training program at HAL Bangalore. So right now these are my engagements as I was talking about. So I am associated with 7 companies right now, 2 companies as a director, 3 companies as an advisor, and 2 companies as a consultant. So one of the companies, which is Vortex Systems, is related to bearing manufacturing and trading. There are 3 manufacturing companies that I deal with, but I'm also a director in 2 companies. One is SolutionBuggy, SolBuggy Connect Private Limited. I'm a co-founder and chief marketing officer over there. And IGD Dev Pro, I'm again a director. It's into high-tech product trading. So we talk about global business trends and drivers, and then these are the trends which generally are manifested in all the businesses that is done today and that will be done in next 20 to 30 years. But then, of course, not just bearing industry, but the whole manufacturing sector, whole financial sector, and everybody who's in business needs to be cautious about what are the business trends which are going to come, which are there, and form the strategy as per that. So first I'm going to cover about global business trends and drivers, which one are those, and then how bearing manufacturers, bearing OEMs are responding to those trends and drivers. So the key trends and drivers that we are talking about is global shift in economic power, aging population, technology, and system-wide transformation. So when I say global shift in economic power, it means that if we see last 200, 300 years history, the epicenter or the center of gravity, what we call in engineering and physics also, the center of gravity of GDPs of the world was very close to Asia, might be 300, 200 years back. It shifted gradually to Europe and then to US. And then now it's coming back. The markets in the developing economies, especially in Asia, are responsible for bringing a lot of growth in the world. So this is what I'm talking about. But then there's a lot of difference what I'm talking about. So when the shift was first from Asia to Europe to US, it took almost 200, 300 years to shift. But the shift which is coming back is now just 20 to 30 years or maximum 40 years. So what it means is the speed of change has increased a lot. And so has the business and the business enablers. We are talking about aging population, a lot of demographics and how it will affect the businesses. We talk about technology and we'll talk about system-wide transformation. That all the things that we used to have or think are true, say 30 years back, are no more true because the things have been very volatile and dynamic. So why is there an economic power shift from west to east? And the reason behind is the increase in global middle class. In 2015, we had 1.6 billion population in Asia, which was in this middle class category. And when I say middle class, it is defined over here as an income $3,600 and above. In 2025, it is expected to be 2.8, and in 2030, it's expected to be 3.6, which means around 2 billion people, middle class consumers, will come from Asia out of the 2.4 billion consumers that will be added. This will bring in a lot of business, lot of growth in the business for everyone because they are consumers. So we in the last slide, we spoke about how the middle class is growing in developing nations. We are talking about rapid urbanization. You can see in 1980 in Shenzhen area in China and 2016 the Shenzhen area in China. It has completely transformed. Millions of people every month are shifting from a rural area to an urban area. And then this is not just happening in Shenzhen, it is happening across 250 cities in Asia. A lot of cities in China and a lot of cities in India. And these are not those big cities. These are the smaller cities which are coming up and bringing in growth. So we spoke about the growing middle class. We spoke about the rapid urbanization. And now we talk about shifting economic power from west to east. If you see 2010 characteristic, around 8,000 of the companies had revenues of $1 billion or more. In 2025, it is expected that around 15,000 companies will be in $1 billion club. But see the change in the share of emerging regions. So in 2025, almost half of the big companies, of the billion-dollar companies, will come from the emerging regions. And we can all see it right now, which are coming up. We see in the graph, 414 cities in emerging markets will fuel nearly half of the growth in global GDP through 2025, 293 of which are in Asia. So you can see that around 35% of the cities that will grow are from Asia. and 37% from other emerging regions, and 28% from developing regions. So which means these are the cities which will bring in a lot of growth in the global economy. What are the future industries that are going to come? Of course, when we talk about rapid urbanization, we talk about the increasing standard of living of people. There's a lot of infrastructure that would be required. The world needs to spend annually on infrastructure around $3.3 trillion from 2016 to 2030 to keep up the projected growth. And we can all see it. I can still remember the place I was staying in Bangalore in 2011 when I shifted from Delhi to Bangalore. I could hardly see any apartment nearby. And if we see today, it's full of buzz nowadays. And even at 10, 10:30 or 11 at night, you'll see a lot of activities going on. So infrastructure is a sector which is going to bring in a lot of growth for the future. We talk about food and meat. These are the two sectors, and I would say food particularly has been a technology deprived sector till now. And there's a lot of scope of growth because so many people will come. They need a lot of food, they need a lot of milk, they need a lot of meat. So food is the sector which is going to come up very fast in the coming future. And then technology, with technology, there's a lot of scope of that technology can play in this sector. We talk about mobility sector. Of course, there is a change from the conventional mobility to electric mobility now, but automotive and aerospace in long term are going to grow. Global middle class consumers in emerging markets will want to consume like those in the developed world. Emerging market light vehicle production will increase by 38% by 2023. And emerging market airplane fleet size will increase by 62% from 2015 to 2025. So these are the industries, main industries I see are growing in the future. Of course, when we are talking about growth in population and the rise in middle class, it will place a significant strain on the global resources. So water is going to be the new oil. By 2025, water demand will exceed supply by 56%. And of course, when we today, or the people who are going to, the next generation which is going to come, cannot afford to utilize, or let me say misutilize, the resources that we have utilized till now in the same fashion, in the same manner. So a lot of activities related to renewable energy, cyclic economy, and usability, reusability of natural resources are going to come into picture. So this was all related to the shift in economic power from west to east. I'll now talk about technological shift. Technology has played a major role in the last 20 years and transformed every person's life. In 2008, the number of connected devices surpassed world population itself. And if we see disrupted technology will have enormous economic impact by 2025. It is mobile internet, automation of knowledge, Internet of Things, cloud technology, advanced robotics. We all know about it. But then when we enter 2025, might be there will be there would be few things that we think in 2025 we would say that, oh, we didn't think about it, and it has come up very fast. Which means the things, the market, the external environment, and the changes that have come very fast. And also, as we say many times, the technology runs 2 times faster than management. So management is more about learning from what other companies are doing, but at the same time, technology, it is running much more faster. And we'll see this In this particular slide, when we see that in 1990s, who were the main companies? It was all automotive companies which were governing: GM, Chrysler, and Ford. The revenues that these companies were making was around $250 billion. Employees were around 1.2 million, and market cap of around 36 billion. If we just compare it with 2015 top companies, which are mainly technology, Google, Facebook, and Apple, they do around 328 million with 155,000 employees, which means they are able to do almost much more with 0.1% or 0.1 times of the employees and a huge 28 times of market capitalization. So we can see the type of change which is happening. People, less number of people making more, creating more and more value for the business. And as we say, technology is changing the nature of threats to the business. And there's a saying, there are only two types of companies: those that have been hacked and those that don't know that they have been hacked, which means that data security and privacy are going to play a crucial role in the future. And data is going to be very, very important. Not just data collection, but data interpretation, big data. How do we analyze it? How do we use it to our better effect is going to be the key for the future companies. So we spoke about two factors till now. We spoke about the first trend, that is change in economic power from west to east. We then spoke about technology that is disrupting the whole business. Now we talk about aging population. So by 2050, the proportion of world's population over age of 65 will double. The number of people worldwide aged 80 or older will quadruple to 400 millions. And when we talk about aging population, it has of course to do with the productivity of people, which has direct impact on the efficiency. But at the same time, we also talk about the burden it brings in on different countries. For the first time in the history, there will be more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 14. In Italy, Japan, and Spain, 1 is 3 people is expected to be 65 or older. That is by 2050. Of course, right now we are not facing this problem in India, but then that's a global phenomena which is coming. And it's demographics, and demographics better is a thing where we say that it's better to just see and form your strategy, because there's nothing much that you can do about demographics. It's very, very difficult to change. And the after effect of aging population, as I was telling, is massive strain on governments. Global net government debt as a share of GDP will increase to 216% by 2050. So we spoke about 3 main factors till now which will change the global economy. We spoke about the economic shift from west to east. We spoke about the aging population, and we spoke about technology that is disrupting everything. Now we are talking about fundamental shift. Now, fundamental shift, when I talk about, is fundamentally what we were thinking, say, 20, 30 years back is no more true. One of the examples is we used to think that capital markets govern the business. However, it is not true at this point of time. There's a lot of uncertainty, especially geopolitical uncertainty, that is driving and that is changing everything. So in advanced economy, a larger and larger proportion of the population are experiencing flat and falling incomes. And then with the advent of, with the COVID coming into picture, it has increased a lot. So if we see 540 to 580 million people Is the share of advanced economy household with flat or falling incomes. Income inequality is the defining challenge of our time. Our social problems are also interconnected. The number of global refugees reached all-time high at the end of 2015. Of course, it is something which is related to globalization, but not a very happy thing or not the perfect way to have globalization. So income inequality will also bring a lot of social issues, a lot of strain. And then when we have resources which are not in abundance, it would be very difficult to survive and to take control of the resources with income inequality. We talk about rising inequality. We talk about polarization of media and politics. Earlier 20, 30 years, we could have, a successful TV program with at least thousands of people. But now we can have a successful program, a successful channel with just 100, 200 people. I'm not, seeing my news, your news, but I'm seeing my news. What I want to see, that is what I'm seeing. So it is becoming very, very polarized media and politics. Increasing displacement from technology, increasing displacement for tech and geopolitical instability. So these are the things which are going to change a lot of things for the future. And then a lot of CEOs see geopolitical instability as the biggest threat to business in the coming times. And we all see, this happening. We have all witnessed during COVID, the emotional and backlash, the business backlash that a lot of countries have faced because of COVID. We are living in a parallel universe. The very few are accumulating more and more wealth as the rest of the society is increasing dislocated. If you see, the wealthiest 62 individuals in the world have the same wealth as the bottom half of the humanity. So anyways, so we spoke about 4 trends that are going to change, that are going to decide how businesses will be in the next 2 or 3 decades. So we are ready for that challenging, of course, very risky and times to come. So now what I have seen is good companies, especially in bearing manufacturers, are shaping themselves to take care of these trends that I spoke about. So I'll talk about the trends and what different companies, different OEMs of bearings are doing. So the trend of population growth, urbanization, increased wealth, and scarcity of natural resources is being dealt with, reduce friction, and enable reliable rotation. This contributes to environmental benefits through, for example, decreased energy and water consumption. We are talking about how do we reduce friction while we design a bearing. So there's an economic power shift from west to east, and then a lot of companies are regionalizing their manufacturing footprints and product development to stay competitive and relevant for the local customers. Today, for DGBB, China is the biggest market, and I see a lot of companies shifting the DGBB factories and also the design centers to China. This is just what we are talking about, regionalization of manufacturing footprints. We spoke about technology and digitalization. So collection of digital insights together with digital scalability enables a transition from product sales to fee-based business model, digital sales. So companies are more focusing on digitization and electric mobility, and because automotive is a very big sector for bearing industry, electric mobility is going to change the way, the conventional way of bearing design. So product development related to robust and efficient e-powertrain drive. There have been a lot of environmental changes and people are contributing towards circular economy, condition monitoring, remanufacturing, and green factories. And then the latest trend, which is low touch economy, which has popped up because of COVID. So what companies are bearing manufacturing companies are doing are they're developing products and solutions that help customers deal with new normal by facilitating new ways of working. For example, remote health monitoring of critical assets of the customer. So what are the focus areas beyond 2020 after COVID? So we see a lot of customization happening in bearings. We see a lot of integrated bearing coming into picture, where a lot of accessories or accessory components that are around bearings are also part of that bearing. And then application specific solution and not standard solution to fit the application. So application specific solutions are the trend of the day. Life prediction and condition monitoring is another trend which is happening a lot. So a lot of sophisticated and reliable simulation tool have been developed. It could be off the shelf and for everybody, or proprietary softwares that are used for simulation to reduce physical tests. And then we are talking about smart bearings, which will tell the health of the equipment continuously and sitting at any report location. We are talking about innovation in terms of new material and coatings, use of ceramics, cleaner steels, and performance parameters of those cleaner steels, hard coatings for wear resistance. A lot of companies are focusing on product installation, use, and service, and not just product sales. Continuous and agile innovation is the need of the hour, especially after COVID. So new ways of working as the volatility comes in the market is the way to go ahead. There are new business models which are also evolving, especially in industrial sector. Performance-based contracts rather than selling of the products is coming into picture. Incentive based on KPIs. So if uptime and productivity is the KPI, the equipment manufacturer, the bearing component manufacturer will get an incentive only when the uptime and productivity is as expected. And focus on predictive maintenance by data collection and analysis. This is the way, these are the four focus areas beyond 2020 for a bearing manufacturer: customization, life prediction and condition monitoring, innovation, and new business models. Now we talk about COVID and the global recovery which is happening and which is expected to happen. Of course, I have this data from IMF, which is a historical data from 1980 to almost 2019, which shows a growth rate of 3.7% from 2000 to 2010, a growth rate of 3.5%, nearly the same from 2010 to 2019, and GDP of China tripled over the decade, which was the phenomenal, which was the reason behind bringing this growth. There's a depression in 2008, but in 2020, things changed. And we see this OECD project that world GDP will rebound to 2019 Q4 levels around mid of 21. So there is an upside scenario, there's a downside scenario also. So the upside scenario says that we will reach number 2019 levels in mid of January. But then the downside scenario says that it will be reached only after 2022. There's a degrowth in world GDP in 2020, which is accounts to around 3.5%. And in 2021, the growth is projected at 4 to 5%. And why I'm talking about GDP, global GDP? Because bearing itself is a very generic product. It's not specific to a particular industry or a particular sector. And that's why it has a very, very close relation to GDP, and more particularly manufacturing GDP of countries. Recovery elsewhere is expected to be uneven, with much of the world not reaching pre-pandemic GDP until 2022. So we can see that in the next slide we'll see how the emerging economies will be the prime movers, and they will recover faster as compared to the developed economies. Inflation to remain subdued given the slow recovery in demand and slack in both labor and capital markets. Global interest rates will remain suppressed. Economies in impoverished countries will at best revert to slow expansion once quick recoveries are exhausted. We see the IMF outlook now, which is slightly better than what the previous one. So IMF predicts amid exceptional uncertainty, the global economy is projected to grow at 5.5% in 2021 and 4.2% in 22. The strength of the recovery is projected to vary significantly across countries, depending on access to medical interventions, effectiveness of policy support, exposure to cross-country spillovers, and structural characteristics entering the crisis. Strong multilateral cooperation is required to bring the pandemic under control elsewhere. So if we see the advanced economies, the emerging market and developing economies, and the World Economic Outlook that has been given, it shows that China particularly and emerging economies are going to have a faster recovery as compared to the other economies of the world. Let us see how 2020 has been, and I've just put automotive bearing market as an indicator of that. So the total market size is around $14 to $16.5 billion. The bearing market development has been in minus, so minus 13% to minus 16%. The market drivers are the light vehicle market, which looks for energy efficiency, reduction of emission and electrifications. The truck market, where now the focus is on total cost of ownership, connectivity and integrated systems. In the aftermarket, the changing by buying pattern, new channels, product performance and cost optimization. So the market characteristics that are typical to this automotive bearing market in 2020 is consolidated automotive OEM market with a small number of large companies, fragmented vehicle market. OEM manufacturers account to around 80% of the total bearing market, while the independent vehicle aftermarket accounts for the remainder. The main players are SKF, Schaeffler Group, Timken, NSK, NTN, JTEC, and some Chinese players which are growing very, very fast. So what we conclude from this particular slide is 2020 was a tough year. Of course, 2019 was also a tough year for automotive bearing market, but 2020, because of COVID, because of restriction, because of lockdown, have been very difficult for this. But then, when we talk about a degrowth, which has always been followed by a strong growth in the future. So what we see is the coming future, especially 2021, 22 is going to be a strong growth for all of us. This graph is particular to Indian market, where we talk about Indian recovery and growth. So 2019 and 2020 in April and May, the growth rate dipped, and then in December it is recovering. And this is the IIP index, which we call the industrial production index of industrial production, IIP. And then manufacturing is a major part of this index, which accounts for around 77.633. So 16-17 for manufacturing was low. 17-18 was a bit better. 18-19 again down, and 19-20 was negative. But at the same time, in December last year, we have seen some positive movements. But unless and until we know how the vaccine is going to work, there are some risks also associated, some micro, infections coming into picture. But then all depends upon the recovery, all depends upon how the vaccine comes and how people adapt to the new way of working. We talk about bearing market outlook in 2020 to 24, and this market research has been done by Technavia. So they say that the growth for 2020 has been, of course, negative, but by 2020 to 2024, 3% CAGR growth will happen, which is cumulative average growth rate. And then the best scenario is Q3 2021 when things will normalize, or the worst scenario is Q1 2022. We talk about another forecast that has come from Allied Market Research, a market research company. We see, and this is a longer forecast when we say 2019 to 2027, and this was done in 2020 around September, and we see that there will be a growth from 2019 to 2027. It would be around 6.1%, which looks quite positive. And then, if we see the shares of, just to give you an example of ball bearings, so China and US are going to be the main consumers of the ball bearing market. So in all these changes, there's a lot of challenge that distribution business, especially for bearings, are going to face. The challenges that they are going to face is if there will be a digital sales, which means that a lot of distributors, a lot of agents, a lot of middlemen will be surpassed. So how do distribution still create their value in that? When we are talking about customized solutions to the customer, a lot of technical interaction is required, which means the OEM would like to directly talk to the bearing manufacturer or bearing designer and then take it forward. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market, so there's a lot of risk in keeping up inventory and stocks, which was always there. But then due to this volatility and change in technology, change in the market, it's a difficult task to manage. We talk about new business models which are coming up, which would be a challenge for the traditional distribution market. So the strategy that we think they should focus on is cost cutting and liquidity management in short term, capture high growth areas emerged in the backdrop of COVID. And we all know the high growth area are pharma sector, food processing sector, chemicals, and a bit of defense. They should analyze, optimize customer mix and product mix. Which customers to keep, which are the long-term customers, and which kind of products to keep, whether it's the the smaller size DGBBs that they should keep, or they should more focus on the bigger size, large size bearings. So this is what they have to decide. Build capability for value-added services rather than vanilla product sales offerings. Learn accurate forecasting, and this is the most critical thing that or most valuable thing that distributor can bring in. So they have to very, very closely work with the customers and the bearing manufacturers. Once they know the art of forecasting, then they will be able to create a lot of value, because accurate forecasting is very difficult. And still remember, I had interacted with a very, very senior leader in SKF, and then he had said that when the market is positive, everybody will give a positive signal. Next 5 years will be really positive. The forecast will be very positive. But however, as soon as it goes down, the people will give a very, very negative forecast. So what companies, what organizations needs to learn is to learn accurate forecasting. Not exact forecasting, but accurate forecasting. Of course, event like COVID is very, very difficult, to predict. But at the same time, the company should be agile enough to take care of such shocks, such changes in the external market. We talk about digital push and accelerate technology adoption. The distributors can also maintain strong relationship with OEM, which is always required, and avoid panic selling. So this was all about what's going to happen post-COVID, what are the challenges that different companies, bearing manufacturing companies will face, and when we are expected to reach the new normal. Now we come to MSME sector in India, where it's a very fragmented sector with around 6.3 crore MSMEs employing around 111 million people. And that's a survey which was done in 2016. And it's the second largest employer after agriculture. It contributes around 30% of the world's of India's GDP. And the aim of the country is to make it 50%, so that more and more small and medium scale enterprise come into picture. There has been a redefinition of micro, small and medium enterprise, so that more companies can fall in this ambit and they can take advantage of the government policies. And if we see what has happened, okay, yeah, so so far is it's a very fragmented market. We can see a lot of food products, textile and garments, basic metal, chemicals, metal products, and a lot of companies in these from these MSMEs across all sectors. So around 2.5 million MSMEs are registered in financial year 2020. That's the growth. MSME growing at a CAGR of 18.5%. Which are the sectors which account for this? Mainly food and beverage, pharma, chemical, electronics, plastic, and packaging. What are the challenges that an MSME faces in India? So it's related to knowledge and exposure, skilled resources, technology and sustainability, and finance. So there is no organized platform to engage industry experts. Still, this particular sector is marred in India with low investment, low technology, low productivity, and high employment rate. So why I spoke about MSMEs in India, micro, small enterprise in India, because I have a growth story to talk about. The growth story of SolutionBuggy that works in this difficult sector, which is, otherwise neglected by most of the people. So SolutionBuggy is an online platform that connects small and medium scale enterprises in manufacturing sector with the subject matter experts. There are around 60,000 companies associated with SolutionBuggy platform and around 8,000 consultants. There are three different dimensions of variability that we have. One is the industry, the other one is a consultant, and the other one is the projects. And when I say projects, it's a query, it's a problem that any MSME faces. And then there are three variables associated with these three dimensions. And these three variables are geography, sector, and function. Just to give you an example, an industry which has no experience of titanium machining will come to SolutionBuggy platform and would require an expertise from one of the 8,000 consultants that we have, who have expertise in that particular function. So we are talking about an industry coming to us, and we generally share it with only the relevant consultants. And when we say we, it's the algorithm which does it. So we are providing a technology platform to them so that they can solve the problem very quickly at a low cost and with the best quality. So collecting manufacturing industries with experts and accelerating manufacturing businesses is the focus of SolutionBuggy. We connect, as I told you, 8,000 geographically mapped domain experts. Interface. So, it's just connection. Interface is a short discussion where sometimes we do hourly consulting, which is also known as mentoring or micro consulting. and SME accelerator model, which talks about empowering the small and medium scale enterprises with the knowledge, and then team up. When we say team up, we take up the project and ourselves try to help them and hold them through the experts and advisors that we have. So if we do the competitor analysis, we have, people, companies which are consulting companies which do work online, of course, but are generally deal with large companies. There are offline consulting companies, and we all know about it. Deloitte, Ernst & Young, PwC, KPMG, the big four and the other ones. There are MSMEs, there are small, independent consultants and boutique companies, consulting companies which are helping MSMEs. But then we see that this space is more or less where online and MSMEs are helping each other is very less. So that's why this particular, this concept is very unique. So this is our leadership team. We have our founder, Mr. Arjun M, who has 12 years experience in MSMEs in manufacturing sector. Mr. Guru Prasad, he has 18 years experience in international consulting, and myself, I have 20 years experience. We deal with different kinds of work. So I'm more inclined towards funding and marketing. Guru Prasad is more a technology officer, and Arjun is more on product development and overall management of the company. The key advisors that we have are Mr. S.C. Bajpayee, who was the ex-chairman of Ordnance Factory Board, Mr. N.C. Agarwal was ex-director of HAL, Mr. Chandramouli Srinivasan, ex-CFO of SKF India, and Mr. Mukundan Nayak, who was ex-general manager of 3M, Mr. D.S. Mehra, ex-associate vice president of Mindabro, Mr. R.K. Dikshit, ex-vice president of KEC, and Mr. Sanjay Nagi. So these are people who generally are the key people who handhold the industry and then help them. They're not just consultants, but they are more thought leaders who bring in change, a mindset change, and a direction, give direction to these people. So what happened during pandemic? We had record order books, a 4x growth in revenues, a 3x growth in projects, and international business. What was the reason behind it? The factor that has contributed is agile business strategy. We were not confined to the way we were working earlier. We quickly adapted the way. I'll just give you an example. So we were, for marketing, I myself was visiting a lot of exhibition to get connected with the people. But then during COVID times, we started a mentoring session for new budding entrepreneurs. And then every quarterly or every 15 days, we used to have that session. And then this gave us a good lead, in going it, in taking it forward. We used a lot of technology. We built a core team during this pandemic and motivated. We had a motivated workforce and a lot of collaboration. And then use of technology. When I say that physical movement at this time was very difficult, and we found through our software, through our database, which consultant with minimum movement can help the industry at this time. So these were the factors. These are not very big, this is not rocket science, but more of small improvements that have made this big change in the company during pandemic. So what it shows is, it shows about leadership traits for the future. We all talk about Jack Welch, who streamlined, who made processes which could which would bring in efficiency, which would give in growth in the organization and take it from one level to another level. But now the definition of leadership has changed. What we were focusing earlier, what leaders do, and now the focus is on who leaders are. Are they purpose-driven? Are they selfless? Are they decisive? And are they resilient? And then resilience, I think, during COVID has been the prime factor behind success and failure of an organization. We have seen leaders who have cracked during these times, who have lost hope during these times, who have closed their companies for, not opened their companies for months, not just because it was lockdown. Even after lockdown, they were not ready because they were not able to face the challenge of supply chain. They were not able to make the keep their core people with them. So resilience is the key in this, 21st century leadership. So this is what I have to talk today. So as we say, the focus of manufacturing in India is self-reliance nowadays. Everybody is talking about self-reliance. India is talking about make in India, China is talking about make in China, and everybody is focused on self-reliance. But then at the same time, right now, moving ahead after COVID, we should also talk about globally competitive cost for engineering and manufacturing. Local manufacturing and customized product development and capturing global growth. That will that is only possible with a good thought leadership, a resilient leadership, which will take it forward. And accelerating manufacturing businesses or acceleration of manufacturing businesses is possible, is not that difficult. So with that, I would like to conclude my speech or my discussion or my presentation. So you can always connect to me at my email ID, Vikas, Vikas Manral, MANRAL @solutionbuggy.com. You can also register yourself in my website and get connected to me. Thank you.